Good morning and welcome to Speaking of Gas. Thanks for tuning in today. This is a weekly look at what matters to you, the owner of oil and gas rights in Pennsylvania, and it's brought to you by the GasWellGuru, educating and advocating for the landowner. This webcast is recorded and can be viewed on YouTube, and I'll share what the page looks like in case you haven't already tuned in. You can view all but one of the last broadcasts, and I just haven't put that up yet. Okay, there it is. And this is what the YouTube page looks like. And like I said, you can go to any of the broadcasts. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them up there now, and there is one more for me to add. And I'll add today's when we're finished. It takes a little bit of time to get that up and do the editing. Okay, so I apologize for last week. Those of you that are subscribers, I had a family matter come up and I wasn't even able to notify anyone. So hopefully that doesn't happen too often. Today, I'm going to talk about a merger that just was announced, and also Dimock, that may be a name that many of you recognize, and also some new seismic that I'm aware of in Tioga County. So starting with the merger, and it is big news. Chesapeake and Southwestern, I believe both their boards have approved a merger of both companies. And I think it has to go through some regulatory approval at this point. There are press releases on both sites. So here's the Chesapeake press release, and has the same information on both, obviously. And then on the Southwestern site as well. I want to say I didn't necessarily compare that to see that it was exactly the same information. But, you know, they talk about, one of the things that stood out for me was creating a global platform to expand marketing and trading business, reaching more markets, mitigating price volatility, and increasing revenue. The LNG exports that's an arena that continues to develop and expand. And the gas here, particularly in the Northeast, it's dry gas, is in a form that makes it good for maybe a little better, a little more advantageous for exporting, converting to liquefied natural gas. So that's a positive. I will say I hear grumblings out there in the field about this merger. However, whoops, here we go. The fact that Chesapeake has, had a number of black eyes, and I'm not sure that all the color has gone out of those black eyes yet, because a lot of landowners were felt they were cheated out of royalties through egregious deductions, where the company took, in some cases, all of the royalty. So I have had many clients and members of our Pennsylvania Oil and Gas Landowner Alliance that have been affected by this. And, you know, they were battling it. And then Chesapeake declared bankruptcy and wiped millions and millions of dollars in what landowners felt were improper deductions, wiped it out. A lot of that still in being resolved through the bankruptcy court. But at this point, what we see is, you know, they'll certainly never be whole, and actually probably far from it. So, you know, there's a lot of very mixed feelings from landowners about the idea of Chesapeake going through the bankruptcy, getting out of paying so many of the royalty owners what was due them, and then, you know, going right back in and buying up companies and you know, operating business as usual. I hope that the combination of the two companies, that it will be a good thing for landowners in the long run. Pretty sure that in those reports, haven't read them all through yet, there's probably no mention of the actual owners of the oil and gas rights, which is unfortunate. They usually, although they're a very important stakeholder in this, my opinion is that sometimes industry forgets to mention them and how important they are in this picture. So hopefully that will be a good thing. You know, Southwestern, I want to say, I don't necessarily rate companies for people, and in most cases you don't get a choice who you're going to lease to. But I will say that as Southwestern goes, that's a company that I hear very few complaints from in my business, and then with my role in the Pennsylvania Oil and Gas Landowner Alliance. So stay tuned. We'll see where that goes, gets approved by the regulators, etc. The next thing I want to talk about is Dimock. And, you know, depending on when you came on the scene with the oil and gas shale revolution in Pennsylvania, you know, Dimock was in the news prominently. Our royalty owners group, when we started, you know, there were meetings early on where we would have people coming that were actually interested in protesting the oil and gas. But, you know, fortunately for us, they never got any legs in any of our meetings. Our meetings were about, you know, discussing the real issues and helping landowners get the best deal to protect their properties, et cetera. And so the people in the back of the room holding up the jugs of orange water generally, you know, just went away even before the meetings got too far. They never had an audience there. But, you know, Dimock was kind of ground zero for the fracking, all the anti-fracking news, you know, pretty close to New York City. And in fact, many movie stars and celebrities actually had secondary properties there in that area and north and up into New York State, kind of the bedroom communities of New York City. And so there was a lot of celebrity brought into that news. When it came to the water contamination issues, and in 2019, the first suit was filed. Some of you probably remember in 2008 that there was an explosion that made the news. It had to do with methane accumulating in what would be like a cellar over a water well where you've got a cavity in there, and made the news because of the methane migration. And then in about 2009, they actually banned drilling in Dimock Township. Said at that time, Cabot was the operator, and there was contamination of water wells due to methane migration. Ironically, not technically related to the fracking itself. And you know, this is my opinion of it, and I certainly heard a lot of the opinions about the drilling. And what I thought was unfortunate was, yes, there was an issue here, and it had to do with the casing of the casing through the water table that allowed migration into those well bores. But it was not the fracking process itself that did that. And the antis used a lot of times false narratives. And I always felt that that was unfortunate, that there were things we needed to talk about, like the casing of the water tables. But some of the other stuff that was thrown around just simply wasn't true. And, this was an area, just like the area I live in, Tioga County, an area where there were already water issues. If you've already got iron in your water that causes it to turn orange, or you have sulfur creating a smell, or methane that occurs. I remember when my parents' water well, my in-laws' water well was drilled back in like 2008 or 1981, and they could light a match at their faucet, but there was no drilling in the area at that time. So it has always frustrated me that the false news that was reported by some of these antis really clouded the issue. It created anxiety for people about what the truth was, and took the narrative away from what the actual issues were. So here we are, 2024, and actually it was December last year that DEP has now given, it's now Coterra, I'll talk about that in a minute, permission to drill 11 wells under Dimock Township. And I'm going to pull up first a map. I'll explain this a little more in pictures. That's how how it works best for me. They've given them permission to drill 11 wells under Dimock Township, and the Marcellus is in the neighborhood of 7,100 feet in that area. And so this would mean, as long as they're only allowing them to drill under, that they're not actually going to be able to site any well pads in Dimock Township. The articles are reporting that, the company can drill up to 5 miles. Myself, I haven't seen any 5-mile laterals. I've seen 20,000 foot laterals, 15,000 foot, but I don't doubt that they may have that capability to do that. So let's go to a couple. First, let's look at exactly where this is. Okay, so this is the DEP map. We'll zoom in on Susquehanna County. Of course, in my presentations, you've seen this before. These red dots are all unconventional wells. I don't know if that comes as a surprise to you. Here is Dimock Township. So it's not very far from Bradford County. And this shows all the wells that have been drilled in Dimock Township already. There are a very large number. And I just got super fast internet. Ironically, it just seems to be lagging a little right now. This is Springville Township, and they have issued some area of review summaries in Springville that could have the potential from those pads to drill there. Here's the line between the two, and I'm going to take a look at this area right in here. And if I can pop up the right, okay, this Heights and Rotor pad is in that area that I'm going to talk about. There's a lot of names that are hard to pronounce there. Heights and Rotor, Augustine. These wells are Heitzman. I'm not quite finding the one I'm looking for. But I'm going to pull up the actual map, and it is in this area. The wells they're proposing right now would be drilled to the south, but as you can see, the potential exists from that to drill into Dimock Township. I don't know. This may be the first foray into that, possibly, that's proposed. So the area of review summary, and we've talked about these before, that was filed for on behalf of, or was filed by Coterra in 2023, December 20th. This is it here, and this shows the proposed wells. Before I go any further, I mentioned, when these wells were initially drilled, it was Cabot Energy. And then there was a merger between Cabot and Cimarex out of Denver, Colorado in 2021. And the new company is called Coterra. Basically the same company, but merged with another company with oil assets throughout the West. So a lot of the news articles are reporting that, the contamination was by the previous operator, Cabot. That's kind of arguing semantics there, I think. It's Coterra that's applying for these permits. And okay, let's see. Let me get on the right page. Here we go. Okay. So this is the area of the pad that this area of review summary is talking about. The wells in green are the proposed laterals. The wells in black are existing wells, and this has their API number so you can identify those. At the top of this, it lists 2 vertical pads and wells and a horizontal. I believe these are listed there just because you can't really see them easily. And they are just vertical wells that were drilled and fracked and are both in production. I did look at that. This shows the LaRue well, which is a pad in Dimock Township. And this blue line I've put in here. This is an arbitrary line about where the township border is between Springville down here and Dimock up here. And this shows the LaRue pad that comes to the south and then bottoms down here. Now, just quickly, I'll recap. The purpose of these area of review summaries is to show where the proposed wells are in green and where existing wells are that they have to pay attention to. And this orange line around the outside is an 1,100-foot buffer, and they are required by DEP to show all the wells that are within that buffer area. And, there have been cases where new drilling has caused issues with existing wells. And so this is an effort to delineate that and demonstrate that to DEP. So these laterals, let's see, I looked those up and they were, oh boy, I'm not sure I remember exactly. Those laterals, if you took them in the other direction, the bottom line is, if from this pad, that you would be able to go into Dimock Township. And when you did, you would be at least 7,000 feet below the surface. So you're not going to have the surface activity, and you're not going to have the water table casing in Dimock Township, just the laterals that would be fracked 7,000 feet down. So I guess that's all I'll say there. I don't know if these wells are the wells they're going to, if that's a pad they're going to plan to drill from at this point. Again, it only shows wells to the south right now, but they could then apply for permits to drill in the other direction from the same pad. The next thing that I'll mention briefly, and there's nothing to show here, but in the northern area of Tioga County, I've been getting a lot of reports, and actually this map behind you, you can see is a map of Tioga County, and it's up here in this northern tier, the New York border. You can't see it in this picture. There it is. And this northern tier over to, well, actually over to about here, I'm getting reports from landowners that they're being notified of a seismic project. It's interesting because I think it's been at least 10 years since we've seen a seismic project. It's a 3D project being conducted by Dawson Geophysical on behalf of Seneca Resources. So, it's a guess. Are they looking for something new? Are they trying to further delineate something they already have that they're already working on? It's possible that the seismic, and I don't know this, whether the seismic included the storage areas when it was done previously, but typically a 3D project covers a relatively large area, and it'll remain to be seen how large that area actually is. The last thing that I'm going to talk about, I always do a plug for our Pennsylvania Oil and Gas Landowner Alliance, and I'm going to share our newsletter that came out January 5th. And, we said to members, take a look at what we've done with your help, and thank you for your continued support. I did a recap of where we've been and a little bit of where we're going. I always like to look back. Sometimes when it seems like you're swimming upstream in your endeavors, that it can get discouraging. Certainly the time during the pandemic, 2020 and 2021 was very difficult for many organizations like ours, where we had to deal with not having in-person meetings, getting in tune with doing virtual meetings instead. And I think now it's been difficult membership-wise for our organization, but we have fared better than some other organizations through this time. And we are emerging from it. We started in 2019, got our legs under us with 2 great rounds of coffee shop meetings. There were 11 in all, the fall of 2019 and the spring of 2020. And then just as we wrapped them up, the pandemic hit. But through all that time, we've maintained our presence in Harrisburg, both watching for issues that have the potential to affect your oil and gas rights, and also promoting, such as the House Senate Bill 654, that would, if passed, and it is moving through, would allow you to take the depletion deduction allowance on your federal or on your Pennsylvania return, just like you do on your federal. The percentage depletion. And we have provided education. I won't say that we've been super duper successful on the virtual meetings, but we have held them, and our board has continued to meet all the way through this. Has been difficult when, we're limited in our in-person meetings, but we had a annual conference in 2022. It was our 10th, and we are planning our 11th for this spring. So we should have a date very soon for late spring. And we typically have, somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 speakers that are going to talk about a range of topics. And there is never a shortage of new topics and a new look at old topics. So we provide some very valuable education. And if you've never attended one of our meetings, you'll find that the networking with other owners of oil and gas rights and the direct contact with the experts that are there as our speakers is also very valuable. So, if you join our organization, you'll get this newsletter every week. The beginning of it, this newsletter has our recap. And a lot of that was to remind our current members and hopefully show new members all that we've accomplished, and if we weren't there, the void that would exist in advocacy and education for royalty owners. We have been doing our best to keep people up to date on the Chesapeake bankruptcy. I have a plug for Speaking of Gas. We have some news from our lobbyist in not every week. It depends on the session week. And then we have a number of news articles that are gleaned from the internet. We're not writing them, obviously, but things that are important to you, both nationally and in the state and across the world. Here, U.S. overtakes Qatar to become world's top LNG exporter. That's, I think, pretty big news for us. So we'll have news articles, good, bad. We also show the legislative days that are from the legislative calendar, et cetera. And this comes out about weekly. That's one of the things in here. We've done 117 newsletters since we started this email newsletter in 2021. And so I think that's been pretty successful. The president, Bob Schur, and I put that together. So thanks for tuning in today. I will check the questions before I sign off. And the same link will work every week, Thursday at 9. And hopefully I'll be there. Next week, I should be broadcasting from hopefully sunny Arizona. I'll be in the Chandler, Arizona area for a little relaxation, but I will plan to do my webcast. You can view the webcast on YouTube, as I said, and I will have new topics each week. I certainly welcome your input if there's any topics you'd like to hear about. And then the final plug, of course, is, consider joining the Pennsylvania Oil and Gas Landowner Alliance. We are there to advocate for your rights in the Capitol and to provide education. So I'll check the question box at this point and see. I have had, I'll say, not a lot of questions on the broadcast, but I have had questions, and I don't see any, questions from participants afterwards, and those are always welcome. So seeing no questions, I'm going to sign off for today. I appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you again next week.